Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we are jumping right into the material you sent over, which is all about uh, biological outliers. These are the real rule breakers of the animal kingdom.
Exactly. We're not just talking about big or strong. We're talking about organisms that push right up against the very limits of what physics and genetics and chemistry will even allow.
That's right. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the rules behind these exceptions. What are the metabolic limits, the genetic blueprints that let these creatures thrive?
And in doing that, we kind of have to redefine our own concepts. Things like strength, intelligence, even the idea of immortality.
It's going to be a fascinating journey. We're going to find out why the strongest animal on the planet could probably fit on your fingertip.
And how some snakes can literally see heat. They paint a thermal picture of the world.
We'll also look at how a simple clam can live for centuries and what the incredibly strange brain of an octopus can teach us about intelligence itself.
So a good place to start is with strength. It's a foundational concept, but it's also a bit of a contradiction.
Right, because when you think strongest animal, you probably picture something huge. A grizzly bear, an elephant.
The African elephant, for example,
Yeah.
the biggest land animal. It has incredible absolute strength.
I saw the number. It can lift something like 770 pounds with just its trunk. That's just raw power.
It is. But here's the catch. That massive lift, it's only about 10% of its total body weight. Most of its energy, most of its strength is just spent holding itself up against gravity.
And this is where we hit a hard physical limit, right? Something called the square cube law.
Galileo's square cube law. It's the cruel rule of scaling. As you make an animal bigger, its volume, and therefore its mass, it increases by the cube.
Okay, so if you double its length, its mass goes up 8 times.
Exactly. But its strength, which comes from the cross-sectional area of its muscles, that only increases by the square.
So it only quadruples. You get 8 times heavier, but only 4 times stronger.
Right.
Always losing ground.
You're always playing catch-up just to stand still. Large animals are in a constant battle with their own bulk. But for small animals, gravity is it's a non-issue.
Which brings us to the real champion, the champion of relative strength.
The humble dung beetle.
The dung beetle. I love this tiny insect. What can it do?
It can pull or push a ball of dung that is 11,141 times its own body weight.
That number is just, it's hard to even process. Let's try to put that in human terms for you. If you could do that, you'd be deadlifting around 80 tons.
You'd be lifting a space shuttle.
A space shuttle. And its secret isn't just being small, it's the design.
It's the architecture. Insects have an exoskeleton made of chitin. It's proportionally much stronger than our internal bones, and it gives them this huge surface area for muscles to attach to.
So that muscle area to body mass ratio is just, it's off the charts.
It's completely maximized. It turns them into these tiny, ultra-efficient biological levers. That's why you see similar feats in the leafcutter ant, lifting 50 times its weight, or the rhinoceros beetle managing 850 times. Physics just loves the small.
Okay, so physics dictates the strongest has to be small. But what if strength isn't about moving things? What if it's about perceiving things, seeing a world that's invisible to us?
A huge advantage. And this takes us to the sensory extremes. Let's talk about snakes.
Specifically pit vipers, pythons, boas, the ones that can see in infrared.
They have these amazing facial structures, these pit organs that are essentially passive thermal antennae. They're not generating heat, they're just reading it.
So they're seeing a heat map of their environment in real time.
And their brain overlays that heat image onto their normal visual image. It gives them this incredibly precise targeting system for warm-blooded prey, even in pitch black.
But how does it work? I mean, on a molecular level.
It all comes down to these specialized ion channels in the pit membrane. They're called TRPA1 channels.
An ion channel is basically the on-off switch for a nerve, right? How sensitive are we talking here?
We're talking the most heat-sensitive ion channels ever found in a vertebrate. And here's the brilliant part. They activate robustly at about 28 degrees Celsius.
Why that number specifically?
Well, think about it. That temperature is usually just a tiny bit warmer than the ambient air at night.
Oh, I see. So it's a filter.
It's a biological noise cancellation system for heat. It tunes out all the background static, and the only thing that lights up the nerve is the specific heat signature of a mouse or a squirrel.
And what's really wild is that we have that same channel, TRPA1.
We do. But in us, and in most mammals, its job is to detect chemical irritants and pain. It's what fires when you eat too much wasabi.
So evolution took a pain receptor and turned it into a high-tech thermal scope.
A perfect example of molecular repurposing, a hallmark of these extreme adaptations.
Okay, from hypersensitive to hypodeceptive. Let's talk about dynamic camouflage. Let's talk about cephalopods.
The masters,
Yeah.
octopuses, cuttlefish, they are, without a doubt, the best in the world at this, way faster than a chameleon.
And they're doing it with two separate systems working together, right?
That's right. The first is for color. They have these little pigment-filled sacs called chromatophores. They're surrounded by tiny muscles.
So when the muscle contracts.
It pulls the sac open, and bam, the color appears. When it relaxes, the sac shrinks, and the color vanishes. It's all directly controlled by the nervous system. Instantaneous.
But it's not just color, they change texture. One second they look like smooth sand, the next they look like a jagged piece of coral.
That's system number 2, the papillae. These are little bumps in the skin, also controlled by muscles, that they can raise or flatten on demand. It lets them change their entire 3D silhouette.
And this isn't just for hiding. Some animals use light for pure offense, especially in the deep sea.
Right, where there's no light at all. You have the loose-jawed dragonfish. It exploits a simple rule of physics.
Which is?
Red light doesn't travel far in water. So most deep-sea creatures, if they're red, they're effectively invisible because there's no red light to reflect off of them.
But the dragonfish, it comes its own.
Exactly. It has an organ under its eye that emits a beam of red light. Most other animals down there can't even see red light. So it's like having a sniper scope with a flashlight that only you can see. It illuminates its prey perfectly.
Okay, these animals are all operating at the edge of physics. But what about operating at the edge of time? How do you slow down the clock?
This is where we look at extreme longevity. And across the board, from clams to sharks, there's a shared secret.
A very, very slow metabolism.
And incredibly efficient cellular maintenance.
Yeah.
It's all about minimizing something called oxidative stress.
Which is, in simple terms, kind of like cellular rust, right? The damage that accumulates from just living.
It's the waste product of burning energy. So if you burn your fuel incredibly slowly, you produce much less of that damaging waste over your lifetime.
And the record holders here are just mind-boggling. The Greenland shark.
The longest living vertebrate we know of, they can reach nearly 400 years old, maybe more.
And they don't even reach sexual maturity until they're 150.
Imagine that. And then you have bowhead whales living over 200 years, and they're also highly resistant to cancer, which gets into Peto's paradox. Why don't huge animals with trillions more cells get more cancer? They must have superior repair mechanisms.
But the undisputed king of long life isn't a vertebrate at all.
Nope. It's the ocean quahog, a clam. One specimen they nicknamed Ming was dated at 507 years old.
507 years. How?
That efficient cellular maintenance we mentioned, specifically they have very high levels of proteins called molecular chaperones.
Chaperones, like they're supervising the other proteins.
That's a great way to put it. They're the quality control crew. They make sure new proteins fold into the right shape, and they help refold or get rid of damaged ones. The quahog just keeps its cellular machinery in pristine condition for centuries.
But then you have creatures that go beyond just living a long time. They seem to hit a reset button.
The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii.
The name says it all.
It really does. When it's stressed, injured, starving, the adult jellyfish can revert completely back to its juvenile polyp stage.
It's not just healing, it's de-aging. It's going backward.
Through a process called transdifferentiation. A fully specialized adult cell, say a muscle cell, decides to become a completely different type of juvenile cell. It's the ultimate biological do-over. It just restarts its life cycle.
And then there's the planaria worm, which has a different trick for immortality.
A different route to the same outcome. It has this seemingly unlimited capacity to regenerate from stem cells. You can cut one into several pieces, and each piece will just regrow into a whole new worm.
And this is tied to telomerase, right? The enzyme that protects the ends of our chromosomes.
Exactly. In us, those protective caps, the telomeres, get shorter as we age. In the planaria, telomerase is always active, keeping those caps long and pristine. It basically prevents aging at the chromosomal level.
Then finally, there's the ultimate survivor, the tardigrade.
The water bear. And it's an important distinction to make. They aren't true extremophiles. They don't love extreme conditions.
Do they just endure them?
Better than anything else we know. They can survive being boiled, being frozen, intense radiation, the vacuum of space. They just shut down into a state of suspended animation.
Yeah.
They teach us how life can just wait out the apocalypse.
Which brings us to our final frontier of biological extremes. Not survival, but intelligence. The octopus.
The octopus is such a fascinating puzzle because its intelligence evolved on a completely separate path from ours. Their ancestor was basically a slug.
So this gives scientists an N2 scenario, a second, independent example of how complex intelligence can arise.
And its brain architecture is alien. It's profoundly distributed. Of its 500 million neurons, about two-thirds of them aren't in its brain.
They're in the arms.
They're in the arms. Each arm has its own cluster of nerve cells.
That seems so counterintuitive. Why would you spread out your processing power like that?
It's a solution to a problem. The octopus has an infinitely flexible body. 8 arms, no bones. If the central brain had to consciously control every single muscle, it would be overwhelmed.
So, the arms think for themselves.
In a way, yes. It's decentralized control. The central brain sends a high-level command, like investigate that crevice,
Yeah.
and the arm itself has the processing power to figure out the texture, the grip, the movements needed to actually execute that command.
Each arm is like its own little coprocessor.
Exactly. And we're seeing this in the genetics, too. Researchers found that, just like us, cephalopods independently evolved large, complex genes related to the nervous system.
So there might be a universal rule here. To get a smart brain, you need complex genes, no shortcuts.
It seems that way. Genetic complexification might just be the price of admission for advanced intelligence, no matter what planet you're on.
So as we bring this all together, we've seen beetles, snakes, clams, octopuses, all these wild record-breaking solutions.
And the thread that connects them all is convergent evolution. The fact that evolution, faced with the same physical constraints, keeps arriving at similar best-in-class solutions over and over again.
Longevity through slow metabolism in both sharks and whales, complex genes for intelligence in both primates and octopuses.
It confirms there are optimal paths, and those paths give us a blueprint. These extremes aren't just trivia, they're roadmaps for our own technology.
Like with robotics.
Absolutely. The distributed control of the octopus is a huge inspiration for the next generation of soft robotics, building machines that can move and interact with the world in a more flexible, gentle way.
And of course, the implications for medicine are enormous.
They are. Studying the planaria gives us models for regenerative medicine. Studying the tardigrade or radiophile bacteria gives us insight into extreme DNA repair, which has direct applications for cancer treatments and protecting against radiation damage.
So we've seen that life can be, for all intents and purposes, biologically immortal. That it can evolve senses to perceive things that are completely invisible to us. And that makes you wonder, considering all the latent potential for regeneration and repair that we know exists in the genomes of these relatives, what other extreme hidden biological potential might be sleeping inside the human body, just waiting for science to find the key?